Hi, I'm Amanda Morgan, and this is Not Just Cute, the podcast, where we discuss all kinds of topics relating to intentional whole child development and supporting the critical work of parents and teachers of young children. Today's episode is a second read. Think of it as the audio edition of past blog posts. You can find a link to the full post in the show notes at notjustcute.com/podcast/episode 9. This one goes back all the way to 2014, but it's a concept I still use frequently when speaking to groups about the importance of the foundational work in early childhood and how it can, unfortunately, often be overlooked. To give you a little context about this post, it was written as we were building the home that we now live in, and it was a big move for us. And we decided to take on this big undertaking of building a home. And it's a process that we actually started before we moved, thinking we were getting a head start and that we'd be able to settle in soon enough. Now, we had built a home before and thought we knew what we were getting into, but in this new setting with new regulations, it was a completely different project. So when I wrote this post, we had moved. We were basically squatting in someone else's home. We had brought a few of our belongings with us, the minimal amount that we could manage. And in some ways, that was really great to live much more simplistically. But at the same time, there was just this anxiety and this anxiousness to get into our home. Now, what I don't mention in this post, because it actually took place afterwards, our home wasn't done within the period of time that we first anticipated it might be. And so we moved from that home into another rental, which was less than ideal, but fit the bill for what we were trying to accomplish and the short time that we were able to commit to. And we have a family of 6 people, and there was one tiny, tiny bathroom. My boys got so accustomed to going to the bathroom outside that I wasn't sure I was ever going to get them to use indoor plumbing again. And they enjoyed it, I'm sure. It was not a hardship for them. But in all of these transitions and in these less than ideal circumstances, you can imagine how anxious I was to just get settled in and to feel at home in our new surroundings. So when I wrote this post, I was in the middle of this process and I had this deep, deep desire for home. And so when we finally started building our home, it was really exciting to me to see that maybe, just maybe, we're actually going to not just finish, but even start this project. And so I was really, really excited about this actual starting point when they started pouring the foundation. To me, that was when it really began. And I was so excited. And at the same time, I got to thinking about how much I really just wanted the home. I wanted to move in and be home. I wanted to be settled. But despite this deep longing to have a home that was finished and to move in, I was equally appreciative of this tiny small step, this foundation that was very carefully laid and just critical to the rest of our home, and yet almost unnoticeable to anyone else. I was laughing to myself at how humorous it was in a way that I was elated for this simple step, this foundation to be poured, when anyone else would not even notice that it was there. Nobody else would be so excited saying, I noticed they're working on your house, because they couldn't even see it from the road. And it got me thinking about the work that we do in early childhood and how excited people are for children to start doing the things that they can see, those milestones and things that they check off. But that sometimes, to the untrained eye, that important foundation work that we're doing in early childhood isn't noticeable, that maybe it isn't valued for what it is because people don't recognize it. And unfortunately, sometimes unwittingly, they seem eager to skip over that foundation step to get to that home that we desire, that we long for. But we know enough about homes to know that we wouldn't skip the foundation point, that we would want to make sure that our homes were secure and safe. And so we take that extra time to lay the foundation. And it's the same for early childhood. When we know the entire process, when we know that there's a foundation, we take more time and put more effort into making sure that that foundation is intentionally laid. And we know that then we can build upon it more securely. And so this is a post that I wrote with these real life events in mind, and also this this thought turning towards early childhood, the importance of a foundation that needs to be intentionally and meticulously laid, even though people may not be able to recognize it or see it from the road, but to know that that foundation is what's going to support the growth that comes later on, that is what will support the work that people are so eager to see. But just like a home, we wouldn't plop down that work without that secure foundation. And so, here's your second read. The vital importance of a strong foundation. Why early learning matters. We're building a home up the street. It felt like a lie to give that explanation over and over to the strangers who have become our new friends, because for the longest time, the truth was that nothing was being built. We went forward with a plan to build a new home in the new area we were moving to, an endeavor that the project manager estimated would be done by the end of September, only to be waiting for building permits until mid-October. October, the start of the rainy season. And the rainy season is no joke here in the Pacific Northwest. Thanks to the kindness of people I've never actually met before, we have a home to stay in. A family working temporarily in another state is generously letting us rent their furnished home, which simplifies things greatly for us. But I feel a bit like a fish out of water, surrounded by another person's things. So to say that I'm anxious for our home to be built and to start functioning as the setting for so many of our family memories yet to come is a bit of an understatement. My nesting instincts, my mother bear instincts, and whatever other animal-inspired instincts are dogpiling together, driving me compulsively toward finishing that house and settling in with my brood. That's why last Monday was such a big day. Foundation Day. My boys stood atop a dirt pile, the same one they also enjoyed sliding down several times, as their dirty bums clearly show in the picture, and watched with rapt attention as a cement truck rolled in and sludgy cement slid down the chute and out of the pump, filling up the foundation walls that would hold up our home. Finally. Passionate about early education and child development, I find foundations to be particularly interesting. Their function is critical. They're carefully designed, prepared, inspected, formed, poured, reinforced, inspected again, sealed, and then, after all of that, almost totally covered back up with dirt. Other than the heavy machinery, there's still no visible evidence of a house to be seen from the road. And once the house is complete, no one will ever arrive at our home and comment on how much they admire the foundation, should they even manage to scramble around enough to see much of it. I am anxious to see a home standing in that spot of dirt, not lines of cement. I want a home I can cook in, sleep in, gather in, live in, and I'd love to see that home spring up right now. But not so much that I'd skip building the foundation. The foundation is what keeps us firmly planted. A house doesn't just sit on the foundation, it's securely attached. Every 18 inches around the perimeter of the house, there's a large bolt embedded in the cement that affixes to the floor of the house. In addition to that, there are multiple steel straps, each of them several feet long, that are also embedded in the cement foundation and later attached to the walls of the house with an almost ridiculous number of fasteners. All of this connection keeps the home safe when the wind and rain come, and boy do they come, or should an earthquake ever surface. My husband commented recently that when he oversaw the construction of our past home, the framers were quick to point out that whoever had done the foundation had done exceptional work. They were glad to see that it had been done so well, because all of the work they were about to do would depend upon it. Straight and square walls start with a straight and square foundation, was their perspective. Like the foundation of our homes, the early years of a child's development are a critical time of preparation. The tasks of early development are often unseen or unrecognized by others. More commonly identified as play, this work of singing, climbing, running, pretending, painting, talking, and listening is more powerful than its simplicity implies. Each activity is laying the foundation for future learning. Children singing songs and listening to stories are building critical pre-reading skills, skills that are not just nice, but necessary for them to become readers. Little fingers lining up cars on a mat are building the fine motor skills that will allow them later to hold pencils and master keystrokes. At the same time, this play work is also helping them build concepts of numeracy, such as a 1-to-1 ratio as they move cars one by one, or the ability to sort by attributes as red cars and blue cars find separate parking lots, or the ability to compare quantities as they realize their friends have more or less cars piled up than they do. All of these skills need practice and hands-on construction before we introduce the later math concepts that often play out on grade school worksheets. In addition to all of that, this foundation of play and exploration prepares children with the gifts of wonder and social problem solving. These are gifts that are built through experience, not by lecture. And it is these gifts that open the door to all later learning. Those unable to see the foundation of early learning for what it is are often eager to plop something down that's more rewarding. Just as I may be happy to skip right to the home I can see, they want to go directly to the seen skills, like reading rather than pre-literacy skills, and mathematical computations instead of early numeracy. This is the learning that counts, after all. But just as our framers needed the assurance of a well-prepared foundation, our young children need a solid, deep foundation in hands-on exploration and play to prepare them for later skills. As I've said before, watching a child take words from a page and turn them into a spoken story is magical to watch, like seeing a house come up where there was once nothing. But before you can put the work and effort into decoding, you have to build the foundation with things like language, phonemic awareness, and concepts of print. As literacy experts Irene Fountas and 𝐅𝐫𝐞𝐞 stated in their book, Literacy Beginnings, a Pre-Kindergarten Handbook, quote, "The knowledge that forms the foundation for reading and writing is built throughout early childhood through play, language, and literary experiences." End quote. Learning foundations are built through play and experience, and we can't afford to skip that. A push-down curriculum isn't helping kids to get ahead. It's simply ignoring the critical role of the foundation. The metal straps and bolts of the foundation secure our home and keep it firm in the face of storms and tremors, and a strong foundation does the same for our young learners. A lack of foundational skills weakens our learners as they move on to more and more challenging work. Often, those who struggle in later grades with reading do so because they lack foundational skills that begin early on, like phonemic awareness or story comprehension. Math woes begin when we fail to start with a foundation of number sense and numeracy through hands-on activities. Those straps and bolts are also a reminder that a house isn't built in independent levels. There's an interconnection. The house isn't just set down onto a foundation, it grows out of it. Likewise, strong foundational learning gives root to later learning, as basic concepts create connections necessary for inquiry and growth. When children are allowed the time and space to build strong foundations, the skills built later on come more easily and solidly. We owe children the opportunity to build strong foundations in ways that are developmentally appropriate. Let's reject the notion that we have to leave childhood behind in order to get ahead. Let's be builders. Thanks again for listening to Not Just Cute, the podcast. You can find show notes at notjustcute.com/podcast/episode 9. I'm Amanda Morgan. You can read more on my blog and sign up for the Not Just Cute newsletter at notjustcute.com. And follow me on Facebook. That's facebook.com/notjustcute. Thanks for listening today, and thank you for standing up for children and for childhood.